everyone, welcome to the video.
ILoveKimPossible Alot has finally released her response video, and to the surprise of precisely nobody, she has learnt nothing from this entire saga. Now, normally, I'd just do a stream segment and go over it, have a laugh, make some super chats, but in this case, I'm actually so annoyed by this response video that I think KP deserves something all to herself. So what we're going to do today is not just go over her response, but I'm also going to release many of the interview segments that for one reason or another were never included in the original video, as well as my DMs with KP, because I want to give you a glimpse behind the curtain, a peek into who KP really is, because this woman is lying to you, and if she's not going to tell you the truth, then I will. Let's get into it. Let's begin by talking about KP's response video itself, because it's actually a fairly wild ride of deflection. KP begins the video by taking accountability for at least the tone of the content. You know, that thing precisely 5 people cared about, one of whom was Brony Fandon't? If you're wondering whether KP really addresses the actual issues people have with her, the answer is of course she doesn't. In fact, if anything, she actually doubles down and adds new, unheard accusations into her response for some reason.
The same server also has a man accused of and arrested of child grooming.
Now, I personally have never looked into the DA Games story, and I don't intend to start now. But what is interesting here is that KP just cannot help herself. She is basically a female just a robot, unable to contain her vindictive rage against the people she feels have wronged her. And once again, KP just throws this accusation out there in a trust me bro moment, and firstly, I'm not even sure what the accusation is. KP, are you claiming that Will and DA Games are knowingly harboring sexual predators for some reason? This, of course, is just the beginning of the problem, because you can't trust KP. She lies all the time. For example, let's just look at how she frames the story with Chris.
Not to mention the fact that Chris himself has admitted to and bragged about a little sex crime that Steven brushed off as a sex joke.
KP is lying to you here. Once again, firstly, Chris apologized to KP about 2 years ago. And secondly, this was a joke. But with Chris, you've got literally the reverse of that situation where he does admit it's a fuck up, says that he's sorry, and it's like that feels like it's not enough 2 years later. So yeah, I kind of want to be clear about that, because I think that's something that you are going to catch flack for. Chris made up a gross story, and I'd ask you to bear in mind this was over a decade ago. Yet KP chooses to reframe this here into a sex crime. There is a whole section in the first video where KP and I talk about Chris, but make no mistake, KP wants to see this man fired and his entire life ruined for it. This section also lets us move on to Saberspark, because not only is KP not sorry for leveling false rape accusations against him, she also starts claiming he was abused as a child, showing a screenshot that does not say that, as some sort of bizarre weaponized gotcha.
And once again, for someone who not very long ago had plenty to say on whether Gabriel Brown was or wasn't a groomer, that child predation online is terrible, and he himself has been abused as a child, it seems odd that he has nothing to say about his own employees' child predation even to condemn it, let alone him excusing masturbation onto a stranger's clothes, a biohazard, and sexual harassment as a joke.
Now, right from the off, KP has always been looking for a way to go at Saberspark. Not just with the accusations themselves, but even in my early conversations with her, KP seems to view the potential of Saberspark's guilt as a potential way for her to save herself.
Is there any other alarming behavior that Saber's displayed publicly? Not anything like this, obviously, but like that is displayed publicly, like anyway, that people are concerned about?
Honestly, I mean, Saber seems to me, having gone through kind of what's in front of me, a bit of an asshole. But he's a YouTuber. That's not unusual. But not really. I can't. No one else I've seen is making any claims against Saber or anywhere near the fucking nature of the Emmy claims. From his perspective, I can see.
No. I can. I feel No, I just feel bad.
At the time, I read this as some kind of genuine remorse, but as things have moved on, it is abundantly clear that KP is not sorry in the least. This bitch is not sorry for what she did to Saberspark, she's sorry it didn't work. We'll get into this further later, but one of KP's big problems is that she is completely delusional. During our conversations, I basically had to lay out very clearly the situation she and others had created for themselves in going after Saberspark in this way. I know that there is still an interest from other people in going after Saber and going after the DA Games group. I think those people are mental, if I'm honest. I think that the reality is that a video like this very much gives Saber carte blanche in the eyes of a lot of people. It's an unsubstantiated rape allegation. He's a victim of that. He is an actual victim, which means now anyone who produces a hit piece on Saber, the immediate response to that from basically anyone who's not ingrained in the I Hate Saber crowd is going to be, you're making a hit piece on somebody with who's had false rape accusations against them. That's like sort of like the line, and that is rough content to produce. It makes him a very difficult target if somebody did want to go after him. So we'll see. Some people don't care about that. A lot of people are more optics brained than they want to admit to. Now at this point, you may be wondering why simple concepts like Saberspark's going to get a lot of grace because you falsely accused him of rape need to be explained to KP like she's a mentally stunted 5-year-old. And that sounds mean, but I'm just giving a description here. KP, to be fair to her, is a trust fund kid nearing 40 who still lives at home with her mother. She doesn't really have any normal human interactions. In fact, as far as anybody is aware, this woman has never had a long-term relationship, so it probably shouldn't come as much of a surprise that her understanding of normal human interactions are somewhat lacking. This may go some way to explaining why, in KP's response video, she completely fails to understand why Saberspark is getting so much quote-unquote grace. Saberspark showed evidence not just of his DMs with Emmy displaying what their relationship looked like, but also evidence of how far he was prepared to go to prove his innocence. KP highlights the fact that Saberspark makes a mistake regarding the timeline in my interview with him.
When given his own testimony on the accusations leveled against him, his own lapses in memory are not painted as proof of malicious lie. His own incorrect recollection of events, as proved by the screenshots he himself provided, are not painted as proof of a malicious lie.
However, what KP completely fails to acknowledge is it doesn't matter, because Saberspark has also got the DMs. We can check in real time whether he is telling the truth. You can misspeak in an interview, it's okay. What you can't do is lie repeatedly in statements, which is what Emmy has done. KP also focuses in on the fact that there was some kind of relationship, so surely that means that something must have happened. And this is why I mentioned earlier that KP doesn't seem to have had any long-term relationships. The only way this dumb as rocks femcel can read human interactions is in some way aggressive. Now, I'm not just saying this without any kind of grounding. KP seems to have a long history of making accusations against people, predominantly that people are in some way attracted to her. Something that she, yes, does here in her response video.
This led to a good number of people speaking down to me, harassing me, and sending me death threats largely based on the assumption that I was a bitter, jealous, stupid woman targeting an innocent, successful, intelligent man for the sin of not dating me. To which I'd like to respond by saying, Steven, I'm just not that into you.
KP is obsessed with the idea that people must be attracted to her and must like her. In fact, during my conversations with her, despite the fact that I'm making a drama commentary video on her, she starts asking me, what would it take for me to watch her content again? Go on.
Well, you were a fan of the content before, like, controversies happened, right? Like, would you go out of your way to watch a video that wasn't about controversy that I made, like, randomly?
I mean, I liked some of the analysis stuff which was negative. I find media analysis generally, well, I used to watch a lot of media analysis stuff. People like Ralph the Movie Maker. It is worth noting here, of course, I had explained to her that my interest in her content and why I knew her was purely based on the horse news drama back in the day, and I should be clear, that's a drama about her not paying her employees, something she still doesn't understand as an issue to this day. But given that KP seems to have no issues with spreading allegations based on rumours, I think we should talk about the other occasion when KP spread false sexual harassment allegations about somebody. Now, I didn't include this in the first video because I can't fully evidence it, but I was told this story with remarkable detail by 3 separate people. And the TLDR is that while at a convention in the 2010s, KP was walked back to her hotel by one of the con staff. She would then spin this into him sexually harassing her, as he was clearly deeply in love with her. And while no logs for this story exist, I did ask KP about it, to which she responded, shockingly, by talking about one of her former editors. Just how many accusations has this psycho put out there?
Hey, thanks for talking to me.
Alright, fine.
So I'm totally blindsided by Casey's take on me. Like, I wish if I was coming off that way, she would have told me. So I was wondering if you had any, like, additional information about that, because I'm, like,
Sure.
horrified, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I don't blame you for finding that kind of a bit blindsiding, because I think it's difficult. So, I mean, I can give you my take generally, because I think part of this comes down to, like, how the fandom worked and the fact that it was very non-confrontational. But I think it's
such a like a historian answer, but okay.
Well, I think part of it is, like, it's difficult, because I see people all the time where they're like, oh, I didn't realize that I wasn't, like, clicking with people, and some of it was, it's a good way to describe some of the stories. Like, some of it was stuff where it was just like, you missed social cues with people.
How many people did you talk to about this? I'm a little concerned.
Well, I mean, I wanted to get, like, a full picture, and also there were some claims about you which I thought were, you know, it needed substantiating, because I didn't think they were fair to you. And I mentioned the essay story from one of the cons, which was mentioned to me by a few people, and I saw mentions of just when I was going through sort of like general takes on your history, which I can't substantiate, there's no logs for.
What for Emmy?
No, there was a claim that while you were at one of the cons, one of the staff offered to walk you back to the hotel room, and then you basically said that this person was going to essay you.
What the fuck is going on? I don't know what that is. I would need more information.
I can have a dig. I mean, I have heard it from a few people, so I don't know whether it's a rumor or something that spiraled. But yeah, I mean,
the only thing I could think it could be is after the drama I had, after my first thing, Bob, I had an editor, Jordan, who got very attached to me in an unhealthy way, and when I kind of tried to cut him off, he lashed out. I think he made a video, he went to Horse News, like the whole thing. And I think I told BabsCon staff, was this at BabsCon, out of curiosity?
I'm not sure. So I'd have to go and check my notes. This is actually the last conversation I would ever have with KP. It occurred on the 24th, shortly after the release of my first video, because what really surprised KP was finding out that nobody liked her. And if I'm to give you a flavour of this interview, it's basically me explaining to an adult woman why she has been, for her whole life, unable to make any actual friends. I mean, I think the big thing was, like, Casey was just sad more than anything else.
Well, I mean, that's kind of my frustration with it, because part of it is, like, this would have been helpful if I knew what the elephant in the room is, but, like, I know Casey means well, but it's kind of insulting that I'm just so clueless and dumb, apparently, that she needs to mentor me without even having that direct conversation.
Well, like, I think one of the stories I heard was, like, your relationship with Jeff. Which was...
Jeff?
Yeah, Ace Best.
Oh, okay.
And it's like... It seemed like you didn't understand why he didn't want to be friends, or why he just didn't click with you. And, like, this seemed to cause, like, a bit of drama.
No, it was more than that, because I think I just asked for something more casual than that. And he got really mad because I had to make him be direct. But, like, that was what I mean. Like, even before all this, like, Casey kind of talked to me like, you know, there are some learning steps, and I'm just like, Casey, like, can you politely get my side before you assume what is happening? So I don't know. That's an aside.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult. I mean, Emmy was part of this circuit for a while, and you said last night in DMs, you were like, oh well, it never occurred to me to ask Casey about Emmy. And when we spoke, like, the first time, and I was like, well, you knew it was Emmy from the start, why didn't you look into her? And again, this isn't just you. No one's looked into fucking anybody in this, so this isn't just a you problem. But, like, why do you think it is that you never thought to, like, look into or ask anyone about Emmy?
I think I made the assumption that, like, because I know a lot of other a handful of girls this has happened to, but girls sometimes tend to fade out of the fandom because there's issues with harassment in general. Like, you know, yeah, and things like that. So I assumed she was part of a pattern, I guess, and she just kind of, like, distanced herself from her pony friends because this thing happened, and it upset her. It made her think of what she's claiming. So, if that makes any sense.
In the case of KP, it is always someone else's fault. She is always the victim. And the reason I include this is because it brings me on to why I am leaking my DMs with KP. Now, normally I have a pretty hard rule about not doing this, but in this case, I actually feel like my hand is being forced a little bit. KP presents my coverage as deeply biased in favor of Saberspark, which, I mean, I'm biased by the fact that he's innocent, sure, but there is something deeper here. The actual reason KP stopped talking to me. It's because her current response video is not the one she was planning to make. In fact, originally, she planned to go after Casey. Apparently, she wasn't happy with the way that Casey had characterized her, but having spent hours talking to KP, I'm going to be honest with you, if anything, Casey was way too nice. Behind the scenes through this entire thing, KP has been flip-flopping between different sides depending on who's speaking to her. And these DMs come shortly after KP had had a conversation with Emily, in which I've been reliably informed by the third party she completely rolled over. At one point, and bear in mind that this is second-hand testimony for which I can't present any evidence because the call wasn't recorded, KP said that she didn't have any sympathy for Saberspark as the allegations were being treated as no big deal, while the harassment her and Emmy were receiving was far worse. This also goes some way to explain why it's taken so long for KP to actually respond. Half the time, people have seemingly been talking her off the ledge of what she's planning to put into this damn thing. And it's worth noting that some of what was in the August draft of the response video did actually leak, because Cartoonshi would put out this tweet in reference to it. But being the professional that I am, I have saved the best for last, because I want to show you the last message I would ever receive from KP, because it is completely fucking mental. Beckett, I have now reviewed your video feeling emotionally prepared to do so, and it's clear I was working against a bias throughout the entire project. For example, my comment saying, "Are you cool with me?" was not about whether people hated me, it was about whether I felt emotionally safe in an intense moment, which I didn't. There are more examples like this in your coverage. I also believe you made ethically questionable editorial choices. Your timeline/screenshot analysis in the second video risks being toxic, given trauma memory theory, a real documented effect, yet you didn't hold Saber to the same standard you held Emily, something Emily herself pointed out in her video. I don't know what Saber told you off the record, but it's evident it shaped your narrative in ways I couldn't respond to. The same applies to your handling of the Casey and Henry stories. I barely know Henry, so what you repeated was gossip unrelated to the topic, which I couldn't clarify. If Casey or Henry want clarification on the unsupported accounts they heard, they are welcome to contact me. I'd like to just pause here for a second and highlight the fact that this crazy bitch is complaining about me apparently spreading rumours while she is levelling false rape allegations. Unfucking believable. My weed use was framed as a stoner caricature, when in reality it was a coping mechanism for a highly triggering situation tied to my clinically diagnosed PTSD. I took the call with you to clarify that the issues of child safety in the DA games community and Saber's involvement in that was misread in your video. Instead of hearing me out, you made assumptions, painted Emily as a liar based solely on Saber's word, and her reputation applies a perfect victim bias, also a real documented effect of trauma, which is both ethically flawed and harmful. You underplayed my intelligence, dismissed my emotional state, and allowed Saber's unchallenged, off-the-record statement to influence your betrayal of me. This reinforced the jealous girl archetype in your work, a mischaracterization. Failing to hold Saber accountable for his public lies, which I can document, signals to others that legitimate concerns will be met with gaslighting and silence. That's a dangerous precedent for victims and whistleblowers. Frankly, it was a mistake to speak to you. You took advantage of my time and openness in a difficult situation. I assumed you were a sympathetic ally, someone who would point out my mistakes but highlight the original point of the video, the child safety. But you painted me as a hopeless fool, acting on ambition and anger, which was never my intention. I had clarified with Casey months before your video went live, who Saber also influenced by framing events in a way I couldn't counter beforehand. Feel free to check those screenshots. I also let you convince me Emily was purely lying when the situation was much more complicated than that. I believe there was miscommunication on both sides, but Saber is at fault for social cue assumptions at the very least. For the record, telling someone you have a crush on them is never consent for sexual conduct. Period. My hope is that in the future, you'll choose to keep what I said in mind and explore the complex states of victims by citing psychological studies and be a stronger advocate for victims rather than an uncritical amplifier for those who ask. I will be ceasing all contact with you, but have cleared Lio to speak on my behalf if additional information needs to be clarified. Now this is all obviously quite a lot to go through, so we're going to break it down into sections and talk about it a little bit because my God, KP is out of her fucking mind. I actually don't know quite how to respond to somebody this delusional, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to begin by just repeating myself, because I feel that's the only way that I might somehow get through to KP. Saberspark actually has evidence. Not only that, he went to the extent of pulling his house apart, looking for old hard drives, and actually putting his wallet to work trying to gather more evidence to prove his innocence. He shouldn't have to do this, by the way. The burden is on you guys, and you guys have no proof. You're just leveling false allegations against somebody. You are not in the right here. You're actually the villain. Frankly, what you've done to Saberspark is abusive. This is, and I will repeat myself from the first video, one of the worst things you can do to another human being. But moving on to the section about weed and me painting KP as some sort of stoner archetype, I didn't paint you as a stoner, KP. You said this in our first conversation.
Wrong chat, KP. You gave me the screen cap instead of the chat.
Oh, okay. I'm not gonna lie, I might have taken an edible before this, because this is just so fucking hard to get through.
As for this beginning part of the next section, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm I'm not really sure what KP means here. I don't know whether she just misphrased something, but this sentence doesn't make a lot of sense to me, which helpfully brings me on to talking about KP's intelligence. I'd ask you to know that KP constantly highlights the fact she feels people speak down to her. And I've just got to be honest here. The reason people treat you like an idiot, KP, is because you are, in fact, an idiot. I'm actually not trying to be mean here. You're just kinda dumb. I mean, let's be honest, what sort of a freak puts jealous girlfriend archetype into an angry Discord note? The only way KP can even process reality is by talking about it like it's a fucking TV show. KP is completely disconnected from reality. Normally this would just be very funny, but she's constantly accusing people of serious crimes, which sort of tints that perspective a little bit. Finally, let's just talk about her takes around Saberspark and Emily. The truth is that KP cannot believe Saberspark is innocent. He must be guilty of something. In her most recent response video, KP makes the insane claim that Saberspark is abusive for wanting Emily to take a pregnancy test.
His own admission of trying to force a woman to take a pregnancy test against her will is not seen as a violation of consent, privacy, and bodily autonomy, but instead as a horrible event he was made a victim of by the girl he had targeted.
Which is further fuel to the fire that this woman has never had a long-term partner. And finally, KP's sign-off note to me, asking me to cite psychological studies and be a stronger advocate for victims. Well, on the psychological studies side, as I do not have a qualification in psychology, I think I'll give that one a miss, rather than trying to give a layman's interpretation. I think we have enough of that on YouTube, if I'm being completely honest. But I do want to talk about KP's motivations. As she notes here, many people have accused her of clout chasing.
A lot of my intent with the video and what I chose to platform in it was assumed. Concerns to me that are still much legitimate were and continue to be brushed off as clout chasing or jealous woman scorn mentality.
Now, I personally do not believe that KP only did this to get some clout. Though it is true from my own conversations with her, she clearly feels a little inadequate and like her life hasn't quite gone the way she planned. No, I think the reasons are much more simple. KP is a deeply vindictive woman. She didn't do any of this because she cares about victims. She did it because KP feels like everyone else passed her by. And the reasons can't be her. What remains of her incredibly fragile ego won't allow her to accept that. In KP's worldview, her channel failed because Chris told a story about her one time, or maybe Saberspark twisted people against her, when the reality is far more simple. KP, your content just about got by when you were dealing with the brony community, but you have nothing to offer a modern day viewer, which is perhaps the greatest irony of this entire drama from your perspective. Regardless of the outcome, positive or negative, it wouldn't have actually helped you. Nobody was watching beforehand, and going forward, nobody's watching in the future. ILoveKimPossible Alot is a fascinating relic of an older time on YouTube, when people who didn't really have any talent could build some kind of a fan base just based off the fact that there wasn't much competition. It's undeniable that KP saw the response to a Lily Orchard video, the first video in a very, very long time that gained any kind of traction, and decided that that might be a viable route forward for her. I have no idea what the future holds for this chick, but after a debacle like this, it's certainly not on YouTube. Now, this is obviously a lot more ranty than something I'd put out normally as structured content, but I have to be honest, I'm just really sick of this woman. KP is infuriating to deal with, and after watching this whole thing unfold for months now, seeing this 10-minute piss-poor response kind of just threw me over the edge. There is, however, one last thing I want to discuss from her video before we move on.
So moving forward, how can we, as the online community, do better? What changes can we make to improve child safety or our fandom spaces? What kind of conversations should we be having? How about power dynamics in fandom spaces and the people that abuse them? Creators turning their fan bases into dating pools? Grooming behaviors passed off as normal internet interactions? These were the kinds of conversations I was intending to spark with my last video. This was my intent. And with the end of the video, I'd like to close off with a note about accountability. Throughout the whole ordeal, I have seen a lot of people attributing my lack of response to mean a lack of accountability, that I was avoiding the controversy and that I was trying to erase or ignore it. Something I invite the audience to think about is what accountability is, what it looks like, and what it isn't. Someone jumping to respond as soon as possible or through as many avenues as possible is not indicative of taking accountability, especially if that response is to victimize/murder yourself in the face of accusations and criticism. True accountability is stating whether or not you did something on its face, regardless of any intentions or effect, and without excusing yourself or attacking the accuser. Example, I made the original video. It was bad, and I understand that. Jumping to dismiss someone as cloud chasing and trying to justify why what happened isn't the word they're using is not accountability. It's obfuscation and defense. And you didn't need to defend something that didn't happen. Anyway, this was heavy.
It is criminal that KP is so lazy that after years of being on YouTube, she can't even read a script properly. She has had 4 months to make this video, and that was the best take? Are you fucking kidding me? As for what she actually says here, KP is incapable of taking any kind of accountability. It is laughable that she thinks she can start a conversation or in some way dictate how other people should be acting. I like the way she invites the audience to consider what accountability is. KP, I'd like to invite you to consider what accountability is. Not to mention the fact that she is, by going after Saberspark, once again blaming the victim. God, this chick is just vile. No wonder all her friends distance from her. And with that, I think I have gone over everything I wanted to cover. Thanks for joining my rage-induced ranting. I promise that the next video I make will be, not done over the course of a single night. I do have a couple more in the works, so I have been taking a little bit of a break recently. You can expect to see some of those appearing over the coming weeks. So, if you've enjoyed this for whatever reason, please remember to like and subscribe, and thank you to all our current subscribers and members, particularly those of you at molding level. The Yule, Stevio5, Ragemonger, Mr. Gamer, Viper Sensor, Juice Snail House, Khutcast, Sapient Pearwood, Kai Rise, Rocky BB, Nim the Gudra, Advocate Shell, Base Toz, Seavance, Letters of Sky, Rotting Brain, Dr. Zeus Hippo, Stationary Name, and Star Sprinter. And let me leave you with this. One thing I said to KP through our conversations was that if she actually took some kind of accountability and apologized, worked at her content, maybe people would forgive her and she could move on. I don't understand why she refuses to do that. But maybe in the future we'll see more insanity out of her. You never know.
But I think the word entitled comes up a lot. I don't.
Yeah, and narcissist. No, it's just like being punched in the chest, but yeah.
As always, more content to come. Peace.